So, welcome to Unit 4. This week, we will be taking a look at Chapter 24, which is how to use the Entity Framework. So, objectives for this week, we're going to create an entity data model. We're going to use the Entity Data Model Designer. We're going to use link queue to entities. And we're going to use the Entity Framework to add, modify, and delete rows in the database table. So in addition, the knowledge we should obtain from this week's assignments and discussion is how does the Entity Framework work? And we're going to describe the terms that relate to entity data models, such as conceptual model, storage model, mappings, object, context, entities, class, navigation property, association. Explain how you can provide for concurrency when using the Entity Framework. So this takes a look at how the Entity Framework works. It provides a layer between the database used by an application and the objects used by an application. It provides interface between the objects and the database. When you execute a query against a conceptual model, object services work with the entity client data provider and the entity data model. The Entity Framework also provides for tracking changes and for submitting those changes to the database. 3 ways to query a conceptual model: link queue to entities, entity SQL, and query builder models. This is just a wizard, step 1 for creating the entity data model wizard. Step 2, step 3, and 4. This is what your WYSIWYG or your Microsoft Visual Studio should look like. This is the Entity Data Model Designer. This is the model browser window with some of its nodes expanded. This is mapping details. This shows you the code that a link queue query that gets data from the invoices table. This is a query that uses the navigation property to load related objects and also uses the include method to load related objects. This is how you retrieve a customer row from your MMA books database. This assigns an invoice to a different customer. This is code that creates a new invoice object, also adds the object to the invoices collection and updates the database. It's a catch statement. And this is the data source configuration wizard, step 2. Code that binds a combo box to an entity collection. Code that binds a combo box to the results of a query. And a statement that binds a combo box using its binding source. This is your customer maintenance form, what it should look like. This is the add modified customer form. Entity data model, the modified entity data model. This is the code for the MMA books entity class. Customer maintenance form. The add modified customer form. This is how you maintain instance. You're going to develop an application that lets the user assign a date close and changes the description for open instance in the tech supports database. So that's basically what we're looking at this week, is how do you use the Entity Framework.